Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our guest dreamer, Sophia Luisa from Los Angeles, California. She is an actress, writer, and producer known for the action thriller The Wrecker and the film 40, The Temptation of Christ, and has an upcoming horror film called Paralysis. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. And you can find her, of course, at imdb.me/Sophia Luisa Lee. Link will be in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends to watch the show and reach out to me. I want to talk to you. You don't have to be anything other than a normal human being who has dreams, and I'm delighted to talk to you. You don't have to be selling something or in a movie or famous or anything. Although if you're famous, definitely reach out to me because I'd like a bigger reach. But that's okay. Where was I going next with that? This episode, I also do video game streams Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific-ish. This episode is brought to you in part by one of my 17 currently available works of historical dream literature. This one specifically, ABC Book 2, The Mystery of Dreams, which offers an explicitly Christian view of how to differentiate divine dreams from delusions sent by the devil. I love alliteration. It's a great one. It'll be up on the screen right over here. You can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast. And if you would stop on by BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, it's free to join, attached to my Rumble account. One of the best ways to get in contact with me if you have a dream to share. So that is enough out of me. Sophia, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Very cool. So do you want to start with your latest upcoming project, the movie Paralysis? I don't know. Yeah.
I know. I'm super excited. Paralysis is a script I co-wrote with one of the producers, and it's a horror film, and it's really terrifying. And I just saw a rough cut of it not too long ago, and it scared me. So I know it's going to be good.
Yeah. Without spoilers, of course, and without, you don't have to detail the plot or anything, but what genre would you, because there's sub genres of horror. Is it leaning towards a body horror type of thing or more psychological thriller? Where would you, excuse me?
Yeah, it's definitely a thriller with some gore. So yeah,
okay.
There's definitely, they don't hold back on the gore.
Fair enough.
Creeps me. I mean, I could write it, but I don't want to watch it.
No, that's very true. Like, there's some things I can handle in my head that actually seeing visuals of it is worse. In some way, it's like, well, I imagined it. How would it be worse to actually see it? But it is. That's one of the amazing things about how our brains work. They don't have to make sense, and they very often don't.
Right.
Good deal. Well, when is that slated to come out?
Hopefully this summer.
Okay.
But with distribution, that's always like a different scenario. I really have no control over it. But I was told, this summer. So hopefully we'll see.
Gotcha. So you were on the writing end of it, but you're not a co-executive producer or anything like that. You're kind of hands off with that.
And I'm also in it. I made sure to write myself a small part.
Well, of course, you got to do the Shyamalan, as they say. You got to put yourself in there as nobody, a random character.
So yeah, it was a fun experience.
That is very cool. I was just thinking about that the other day. There's a show I watch where they do a green room type of thing, which is funny. We're meeting on my Discord server. We meet in the green room to record these things. But they have a show they call the Green Room, which is just talking to their guests before they go on the air to do the actual show. And what they do is that, they get that footage, and I'm thinking my way through, why am I thinking about this? I don't know. But they get the footage, and then they hand it over to a producer. They're like, okay, we the talent have made the thing. We're giving you the raw tapes, make something out of it, put an intro and outro, tell a story, do whatever you want with it. And then it's kind of like, yeah, there's the talent and then the production staff that kind of, you can't do anything without both of them involved, but definitely there's the different specialty. Like the actors, like, I don't know how to distribution. I don't know. I'm working on my pathos here. So you got to have someone else. Yeah.
It's so complex, so many steps to it. I don't think people really realize, you watch a film and you think it sucks and you think, oh my God, so many hours of hard work went into making that. So when it's not a good movie, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I do. And I feel bad for the people that made it too. I'm like, it's just, and you can tell when some people poured their soul into something and it's just awful. You just weren't very good. It just didn't hit the beats or whatever.
It's like,
that's a huge deal. So
exactly.
I did want to ask though, because I've seen, and I think I said this a moment ago, just before we got started, that I've seen the Nikos Kazantzakis film adapted, The Last Temptation of Christ, but the one that you were associated with, it's like the number 40, 40 as in 40 days, The Temptation of Christ. How was that one different? I mean, what should I look to expect as far as like a different telling of that story?
It's fascinating about that movie, which I have to say, it's number 7 on Amazon right now.
Mm-hmm.
We did this movie 5 years ago, and it's finally hit the top 10, which is really great. And of course, it's Lent right now. But it's an independent film, and all the dialogue is straight scripture. So I thought that was really clever because there was no real adapting dialogue. It's straight from the Bible, which I thought was pretty amazing. And it's some nice twists and turns. And it's so interesting. When I did that movie, I did my first horror film pretty much simultaneously. And I got a lot of comments saying, oh, how can you do a Christian film and a horror film at the same time? If you think about the Bible, there are so many horror stories within the Bible.
Yep.
And the 40, it's dark. There are a lot of dark twists and turns. And I don't think, so in its own way, it's kind of like a horror film.
Sure.
You're following Jesus. And so, I mean, it's a beautiful film. I was really, really, really proud of that film. It's hard. It's good. It's really
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, I'm a big appreciator of world religions and philosophies and ancient mythologies. I think it all goes into properly understanding symbolism. You got to, because these people were telling stories that related to their lives and their worldview, and that's how you get Medusa and all these other, classic. So my appreciation for the Bible definitely outstrips my specific knowledge. Was it at the end of that 40 days in the desert that he then went to the crucifixion? Was it like almost immediate? It was like he came back from the desert and okay, that's what I thought. But I was like, I just wanted to check my knowledge on that, and that's amazing. It's like the real temptation was you don't have to go to your death. You don't have to sacrifice yourself in this horrible way is coming. And the devil offers him, all the earthly power. It appeals to all the seven deadly sins. I can give you anything you want if you just don't go through with this thing. And it's like, not only are you suffering in the desert, starving, he says, I'll turn the rocks into bread you can eat right now. And then I think that's where we get that line, man does not live by bread alone. Wow.
But I think too, it's like there really is no such thing as death. So
Fair enough.
He's going through these 40 days, and he's sacrificing all the humanly body stuff, if you will, and he's really connecting to source, or to God, to his Father. And so, physically he's feeling all the ailments, but it's like he already knows there's no death. He knows what he's going to go through. And it's kind of like life. We go through all these different experiences. Do we gain wisdom from it, or do we get stuck in a rut as victim mode? How do you want to live it? And why is there so much fear when really the soul never dies? We're just having this human experience, but our soul's eternal. So it's really interesting how things get categorized and there's so much fear. But hey, that's a different topic.
No, it's very true. Well, it's a great thing too to mention in regards to that story, because that is what underlies everything he did as well, is that he knew no matter what he was going through, that death was not going to be the end, or that it would be if he gave in to the temptations and didn't follow the path. Then he would not transcend death for everyone in that savior capacity. What struck me so powerful about it too is like, everyone says, I'll start my diet on Monday. And this is what I was thinking about, right? And it's like, well, I'll splurge on the week. I'll let myself eat whatever I want, and I'll start my diet on Monday. And then that's the day of sacrifice. And what he did was, no, I'm going to start now. I'm going to start as soon as I realize it's necessary. I'm actually going to go subject to myself. He didn't have to go off into the desert and starve and meditate and do all those things. He likes, I'm going to willingly embrace this unpleasant period of time as a ritual purification, essentially, and then I'm going to go do something even more unpleasant in an earthly sense. And that was kind of blowing my mind when I was thinking about it too, just in general, of like how we approach that.
Right. It's just incredible. He had his intention.
Mm-hmm.
He knew he had a purpose for it. And I think that's what's so interesting too. In life, people don't really know what their purpose is, so they just kind of meander about. And I think it's easier for them to fall off the wagon for certain things, if you will. But if you have like a purpose and intention with your life, I think it makes things different. But again, a different topic. So I think do what makes you happy. Whatever it is, just do it.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely. There's like what was some famous quotes that said, man can endure any how if he has a why. If you have a purpose for it, you can kind of deal. Well, it's like there's almost nothing worse than meaningless suffering. Purposeful suffering you can deal with, but meaningless, that it serves no purpose. Maybe if it's even counterproductive. It's just malicious for its own sake. It's just pain to cause pain. That's like the very definition of evil in my mind.
Right.
So yeah, for sure.
Agree. And that's kind of what paralysis is about. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. The pain's inflicted definitely has intention. There's definitely intention in pain infliction.
Yeah, that feeds back into the horses. Like what do humans find horrifying? And it's not just pain. Like we watch some movies where watch say the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and man, those people suffered. They went through some stuff, and especially Sam and Frodo at the very end. They're broken, they're tired, and then that also gives that opportunity for that hero moment where who's the real hero of the story. And a lot of people say it's Sam because he said, I can't carry your burden for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you. And he puts him on his back, and everyone in the audience gets a little tear. They're like, oh man,
right.
And then what's so great about it is, these are. We hold up heroes because they there's two sides to the coin. They naturally embody things that just resonate with us, that we say, I get it. I know what he's doing and I know why. But also we hold them up intentionally so this is something you should want, that you should aspire to. It's a validation of that sacrificial element. And in that, to bring two motifs together, that's kind of his Jesus moment in a way. Is like, so Jesus can't carry our burdens for us necessarily, but he can carry us across that finish line in that sense, if we invest that belief or faith in what's going on there. So I love these stories. And this is me coming from a agnostic, atheist, leaning hard towards deist type of thing. I don't follow any specific tradition, but I think there's probably a God, and that's how we all got here. What does he want? We're trying to figure that out. So
exactly.
Yeah, but that gives me. Go ahead.
Just be good. Just lead a good life.
Just be a good person. Yeah, as much as you can. Try not to be an asshole if you can avoid it, unless you really have to for a good reason, and then sometimes.
Yeah,
But anyway, well, that's a little chit-chat and getting to know you. You have a bit of a time limit, and I know we're not up against it by any means, but I don't want to short you on the dream experience because you never know if these things might take a minute to get through. So if looks like we got about an hour to dedicate to that. If you are ready to move on, if you wanted to plug anything else real quick, we'll throw it in. We can throw it in again at the end, or.
No, this is good. Well, I do have a plug.
Go ahead.
For the past 2 years, I've been working with a woman on her memoir. And it's about to be published. It's called A Piece of Me, Finding My Voice After Mormonism, Marriage, Medicine, and Men. And she's been out pitching the book like crazy, and it's really juicy. It's a really juicy book. So I am pretty excited about that.
I don't know why that sounds familiar, but then I also don't know why I would have ever heard of it. Maybe I just randomly came across. It's out now. It's published.
It's going to hit the shelves any day now. Yeah,
there you go. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but that's a fantastic title too. It's like, we were just saying how religion can provide meaning. It can also be restrictive if it's done wrong. I mean, it's a weird thing. I love the study of language as well. And we've got this thing going on where we think of religion as different than a cult, but that's not kind of how the ancients thought of it. And cult is actually the root of culture. So it's what am I trying to say? In my estimation, or as I've thought of it, a cult is just a religion that doesn't have enough followers yet in some senses of the word. But we also tend to think of it as in modern times, we think of cults that have had Heaven's Gate, Jim Jones. We think of those as cults where it's like it's taking you away from something good, trapping and lying to people. And So there's the connotative versus denotative meaning of the term, but you can't have culture without a cult. So it's just kind of a thing. It's got to make sure it's not a bad one that's trying to separate you from your family or to get you to drink the Kool-Aid, that kind of thing. Anyway, well, I'm glad you got a chance to get that in there. Let me make a note of the time. Yeah.
All right. Have you seen that movie Heretic? Chance? Heretic? That movie, Hugh Grant? About the two Mormon girl missionaries?
Oh, no, not that one. I was thinking of Hereditary, and I was like, that was the horror film with the. No, I've not seen.
Heretic is really good. It kind of questions what is religion, and so actually, it's a pretty profound movie for it being a horror.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I'm going to put that one on my list for sure. I used to like horror movies more. Maybe when my life was more stable and I hadn't been through enough stuff. It's 25 years ago. I used to find them, and then I realized life is pretty horrifying, and I don't watch many of them anymore. Or if I'm going to, I want to watch a movie that has something interesting or profound to say in that regard. I'm getting windows popping up over here. Stop that. Okay, so as per my usual process, I just shut up and listen. Our friend is gonna tell me your dream, and then we're gonna talk about it. It's easy as that. You can't do it wrong, so don't worry about it. I'm ready when you are.
Right.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
I have a motto: live in the creative flow, because everything's creativity. So I try to make it a point to always remember my dreams, and some dreams obviously stand out more than others, and some I remember stronger than others. This particular dream happened to be in a jungle, and it starts off where I'm like a pregnant woman, like a native of the jungle. And I couldn't even tell you the time frame, but it wasn't today's time. And I'm walking through it, very, very pregnant. And then there's like a bolt of lightning. And then all of a sudden, I'm a little girl, probably like 10, like a little skin and bones type girl. And I'm running and I'm having a blast. And I climb up a tree and it's raining really hard. Then I grab a vine and I swing, and I'm just having a blast. And all of a sudden there's this big stream of water, and I let go and I fall into the stream, and I'm not scared. I'm just kind of like bouncing around like this little skinny kid. Then I come to a rock and I see my grandparents' house. Now my grandparents are dead, and they had a big front porch, and it's still raining, and I see it. So I managed to get out of the stream, and I go onto the porch. And my grandfather used to play harmonica, and he was playing his harmonica, and I went in, and my grandmother said, okay, sit on the porch with us. And so I'm just sitting on the porch, and I have my hands in the water, and it was just such a peaceful moment because it's raining like crazy. Then we're just sitting on the porch, and then my mom, who's also dead, she comes out, and we don't say anything, but she just sits on the porch. Then I said, okay, I have to go now. So I jump into the stream. Then I become a woman. And then I end up at like a big park where it's very hilly. There's a lot of green, and I'm like all wet from having been swimming. And I'm walking, but every time I walk, my feet kind of like really sink into the earth. And it's grassy, and so I have like grass up to my knees, and it's like really hard to walk. I'm just really trying to keep walking. And then it's nighttime. Then I realize I have to find a place to sleep. I see a house not too far away, but I have like a really hard time walking to the house. So I finally make it to the house. I'm exhausted. I'm still wet. I'm go inside, and the house is like in shambles. You know, but I figure I'm so tired. I just need to take a break. And remember, I saw like a little cot, and it was like really dirty and stuff. And I just went down and I laid down. Then and that was it of the dream. So I remember like the smell was just like really old and musky, and there was no place else to go.
Okay. That is fantastic. Man, I wrote as fast as I could. So many great details.
Yeah, there were a lot of details in that one.
For sure. Well, I'm glad I didn't short us on the time, because that's so much. So there's, wow, where do we even start?
Pregnant lady in the beginning was like, wow, so.
Right. Well, and in a different time and place and a different person, completely different. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. We have multiple different settings. You have multiple different actions or interactions with the environment. You've got multiple different people that showed up. They, and not only that, the person that was you, but not you, and then the little girl, and then she meets your family or the deceased grandmother, grandfather, your mother, and but then they're all gone, or you have to leave them, and then you transition through other different environments and enter another house. So we've got elements of the environment, the jungle, the rain, the river or stream, the house of grandparents, back to another environment, continuing through the water, and then through a park, and then to another house, and then to experiences inside the house. So all of these are, they blend into one another too, but there's sections, chunks that then transition into one another, and there's usually a reason. That's what we're going to try and get to, is the connecting through line through the whole thing. Why does one thought lead to another? And that's kind of how our so my theory on dreams, and it's not maybe mine exactly, but I express it this way, is that the lungs breathe, the brain, the heart beats, and the brain thinks, and the brain never stops thinking even when we're asleep, and that's what dreams are. So dreams are actually more of what our actual thought process looks like when we're not paying attention to it through conscious experience. So you're almost getting a more raw, unfiltered look at your thought process in dreams. And it's amazing we can pull any of that out with us. But we tend to think in feelings and images and different things like that all connect. So I think I was going somewhere with that, but maybe not. Connecting the dots. No, I lost it. That's okay. So let's go back to the beginning. You're in a jungle. Yeah. And that's great. What comes to mind when you think of a jungle? What is a jungle?
I think of like the rainforest, snakes and all kinds of creatures, and really honoring the trees and the land and the marsh. And so lots of greenery. I think of like tribal people living in the jungle, like the medicine man, the medicine woman.
Okay.
And then when I saw myself as that pregnant woman, I was like a tribal person.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
What the thought that occurred to me when you're putting all that together is that there's a reverence, but also a recognition of the danger? Because one of the first things you said was, snakes and creatures. Like, absolutely. But the more you went through it, it's like, okay, what's the environment? Rainforest. What do we find there? We find some dangerous things sometimes, but also the sacredness of the space, the trees, and then and the greenery, and also the tribal people. So, in a sense, it's almost as if in your dream you're like, so think of the concept of the jungle and everything it entails. Now yourself as a more natural part of that environment. You're not you having left LA and flown there and wearing shorts and Birkenstocks traipsing through the woods. You are a native of that area. So you're in the environment where you belong, or where you were born in that sense. And you are pregnant.
Very pregnant.
Yeah. And I suppose I could just, jump back into the word association thing with you too, but maybe I should. I'll do less telling and more asking. The idea of what does it mean to be pregnant? What aspect of pregnancy was important in the dream there to you?
I think I like to think pregnant with an idea, creativity. You're creating new life, especially as an artist or as a creative. You get pregnant with these ideas.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting, the way I saw myself, just like the very pregnant, but yet, and it's starting to rain really hard, still being like, okay, I'm in the rain. I wasn't scared. I wasn't frightened. I thought it was really interesting how it transitioned from like a bolt of lightning. Then all of a sudden I'm like this young girl running through the jungle, climbing trees and, so.
For sure. And actually, before I asked you, I was going to say that I had similar thought, but I'm glad you put it that way. The idea of being pregnant with an idea, or the creativity itself. I think that is, well, given that you kind of, the dream and everything you say about it is all related as we start discussing it. So you started off at the very beginning is, what was, I wrote that, live in flow. Creative flow. So I was thinking creativity, creation, the idea of pregnancy. Exactly. So you're in this natural space where you imagine you are well adapted to it, or a part of it more than who you are now, or at least this part of you. And it's having the, did you get any sense that the child was the child you were pregnant with before, or completely different?
The child was me. Yeah.
Well, the child was you, but then you were the pregnant woman. So was it then also you gave birth to yourself in a way? I mean, am I?
No, I didn't see it that way. It was like all of a sudden it was kind of like jumping timelines, if you will, from a very pregnant woman in the rain going somewhere. It's like I remember I was holding a staff, kind of like walking through it, a bolt of lightning. Then all of a sudden I'm this young skin and bones girl just like running and having a blast, climbing trees in the rain, and grabbing a vine and like swinging.
Yeah.
Which.
So there wasn't a specific direct connect. You didn't see yourself give birth to yourself and then you became that. There was a jump in it there. But it's the first thing that came to my mind was the idea that that's connected, though, that if you've got the right setting and the right actions, or the pregnant potential of something, and then the next scene is, and there's a bolt of lightning. There's like what is lightning? There's it's like earthquakes and fire. It's massive force of nature, and suddenly you are. So, what am I trying to say? I think there is a connection there's certainly a connection between the thoughts. It's like, first you think of this. Okay, imagine that. Ready? Got it. Now this comes from that. There's in the little girl, there's something that feels to me like the fulfillment of that potential, and that it's a positive fulfillment. If that makes sense.
Having fun, being careful. Well, it's fun because when I happen to be a mom. If you have a child, it's like there's a certain responsibility now, so you kind of give up a part of yourself to be this mother.
Oh yeah.
It was just so interesting, to see myself as a young kid completely free responsibility and, climbing trees and swinging on vines and,
Oh yeah.
in the rain when you're not supposed to, because you might get hit by lightning. Yeah. So I just thought it was really interesting.
That is great too. And like if the, what am I trying to say? If the whole dream was, I was a child running through the jungle, swinging on vines and having a good old time and going swimming and whatnot, we would probably bring a different connotation to just that encapsulation. But because of where it started and then this part and then where it's going, I think as you were saying, it does very much relate to, so as I use the word, I use fulfillment of potential. So that, it's great to be pregnant with an idea, but you got to give birth to it at some point. It can't stay there forever. Otherwise it becomes a stillbirth in that way. It's like you gotta do, poop or get off the pot, as they say. So yeah, and pregnancy is a great thing too, because it has a natural conclusion. It's like, this is a process. It is a process with a beginning and an ending. The child will be born, or it will not, but the pregnancy will be over one way or another. There's a grasping, what is it? Striking while the iron is hot came to my mind. That idea of, you got to act when the time is right. So I don't know if another thing that came to my mind, and this is from my history, is I used to play D&D and whatnot, and we had a joke, and it became a joke around the internet too. It's like, the Deus Ex Machina moments where it's like, hand of God, blue lightning, and it was a joke in my D&D group, because we were, anytime the DM was like, we're just going to get you back on track, you guys have gone pretty far away from the story, so type of a thing. So there may be something, but what do you associate with lightning? Well, what does lightning mean in your mind, or what just comes to mind?
I always think of it as a great force of energy, possibly a wake-up call, pay attention. I always think of like Thor.
Sure. No, that could be good too. So which I mean, that may be just a tangential connection, but which aspect of Thor do you think lightning represents? If you had to just gut response, first thing comes to mind.
A power, just power of controlling, having that magnetic power, creation or destruction because of it.
Gotcha.
Like,
yeah, and there's a lot of, we can be in a way, let's say pregnancy in general. You don't know what your child's going to be, so you could be pregnant with the son of the devil, and there's been horror movies about that too, of like, the bad seed and that kind of thing too. So in some ways you never really know what the fulfillment of potential is going to be coming out of something. So for this one, there's the lightning is a transitional moment between these two sections. You are one thing, and maybe there's a connection there too with the idea of pregnancy or giving birth as a powerful moment too. It's like that lightning strike. It's a natural process. It's intense, and it changes everything on the other side of it. There's something like that there. When you said like a force of energy or even a wake up call, it's definitely something. It booms, it crackles, it flashes. It's very attention grabbing. It's like you can't miss it when it happens right near you. You're gonna feel it one way or another, even if it doesn't hit you. So there's an unavoidable quality to like a inevitability as well. It's like we say with forces of nature, it's like you can't stop it. It's coming. It's happening, type of a thing. I think it's all related to the the birth idea. That then now whether or not the girl you become in the next scene is the person. Because I think that would stand out in your mind more. Go ahead.
Like you see connection.
I do, but I'm struggling with it a little bit because it doesn't feel like you've naturally put together the idea that you are or have become that child that you were pregnant with before. It almost feels like you're someone or something else.
Right.
Even though it makes sense in my mind that you would be that child. But that's not the connections coming through. That's not what, like you would have told me, and suddenly I am that child that I gave birth to. I am myself and go ahead.
I mean, that wasn't something I had even thought about, but that would kind of, give birth to yourself. I think we all go through different incantations of ourselves through life. That that could be interesting.
It is possible. And I hesitate to, none of these answers are in me. So I'm not telling you what it is. I'm trying to help you figure it out. And if I offer an idea that sounds interesting and seems logical, but you don't feel it, like there's a little zing that goes from your head to your gut, and you go, oh, wow, yeah. If you didn't get that moment, then we might be on the wrong track. It would no, but that's okay. I'm happy to be, I rattle a lot of doorknobs. I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us somewhere else.
But this is interesting. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It's what I do. I'm all kinds of squirrely to make notes that I can't read. But I have all these crazy ideas. So that may not be an important element of it, but it's more of the idea of that transformational moment. And then the idea that it leads you somewhere. So there was the crack of thunder, and then you're a child, and you're, part of the reason that it related to me with the idea of the birth of that potential and then embodying that potential was that now you're living out that potential in a way that is, when that pregnancy is complete and the child is grown, now she's going to experience the world around her in a way that is enthusiastic and exploratory and joyful. That there's something about what's on the other side of this powerful moment. Let me write some of this stuff down too. I'm not going to remember any of this.
I thought it was interesting too. It was still raining, raining on the pregnant woman and raining on the child.
Yeah. Well, what is your relationship to rain? I mean, do you look at it as, oh God, I'm going to get wet? Or do you look at it as like nourishing the earth? But what's your relationship with rain?
I love rain, except when it is nonstop and houses are sliding down hills and, flooding's happening.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So it can be very cleansing, or it could also be very destructive.
And some people would say destruction is cleansing. That's people say, kill it with fire, is a meme on the internet, of course. Right. But that's good too. So yeah, so you generally have positive associations with it. I mean, what pops into my head, and I can't say these things as if they're your associations, but I get similar ideas of. To me, it's like nourishment. Like we don't have a green world without rain. So it's like, I don't like being cold and wet. Nobody does. And I don't like floods and destruction of property, but we need the rain. It's a good thing. And I'm generally happy when it rains because of what it represents to me. So it seems like you're on a similar track. You love the rain. It's cleansing. It has its downsides. It's another force of nature here. And what happens eventually to the girl was, she's,
trees.
Yeah, it may not be. What am I trying to say? We may not need to spend too much time on the specific behaviors, but it seems to me like those behaviors are. You're like, well, what does it look like to have fun in the jungle as a little girl? We're gonna climb trees and swing on vines, Tarzan style. So it seems to me like that's the strongest reference. It isn't that the vines represent something or trees specifically represent something. It's more the aspect of exploration and enjoyment of the natural environment.
That sounds good.
Okay. What was it? I was writing that down too. I did already. Joyful exploration. Yeah, and that's I do the counterfactuals too. What didn't happen was she wasn't hiding under a rocky overhang, shivering, avoiding the rain. She's just out in it. It's gonna rain. I'm gonna get wet. I'm gonna have fun anyway. So that's the mixed blessing of rain, and then the girl demonstrating kind of an acceptance of that. Not only an acceptance, but they like a she's reveling in it nonetheless. Like the rain ain't gonna stop me, and the rain ain't that bad anyway, type of thing. Yeah. I may have dropped a few lines of text from what you were saying. So, at what point, or what was the girl doing when this? I think you used the word blast of water swept her into the river.
Yeah, she jumped into the river that was like going really fast. It just like. She wasn't scared, and she was just kind of like riding it in it. Then that's when the little girl came up to the porch, our grandparents' house. She was like right on the riverbank. So
okay,
she came to a rock and then got out, and it's like so again like shifting timelines. all of a sudden it's like, okay, walking into a different world, and then knowing these people as my grandparents. No words were spoken. It's just like my grandfather playing his harmonica and my grandmother there on the porch. Then my mom came out and we just kind of like all sat there peacefully. No words, no intense emotions, just very chill. Watching the water and then going again.
Just writing all that down again, so I got it. So there was something about, water is featuring heavily in the dream. It's coming out of the sky. It's nourishing. It's dangerous. It makes a river, and the river carries you somewhere. I thought that was a powerful thing too when I heard it as well. This idea of this, there's multiple different natural forces at play, but in our minds, and so there's the wow. Where do I start with some of this stuff? There's the collective unconscious idea. One aspect of it is that we are all human. We are embodied human. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, usually all that good stuff. We have a specific relationship with water. We need it to drink. We need it to water plants so we can eat. And we drown if we fall into a swift moving river that we can't deal with. So there's a complicated relationship, but it also very often represents going with the flow. It's, that's where we get that metaphor from. It's like, if you can, in times of extreme need, swim upstream, but you're going to put a lot of effort in. You don't want to do it if you don't have to, just for no reason. It's just making your life hard. So for you, or this girl that you are, she chooses from her enthusiastic, exploratory, fun engagement with the environment. She decides, that mode of being in that environment brings her to a river that she decides to jump into, and then that acts as a transportation vehicle in a way to get you to the next part of the dream, which is being reunited with deceased relatives, which is a huge part of dreams throughout history. Ancient what is it? Go back to Greek mythology, and Patroclus came back to Ulysses as a shade, or not Ulysses, Achilles, his best friend Patroclus came back to him as a shade to have a communication with him. And it's never really spelled out whether that was a vision, a dream during sleep, or whether the shade was embodied in the dark tent in some way. So what do I do with those things? I try to divide dreams into 2 categories so I stay in my lane. One category, I say it lovingly, is the spooky woo side of things. Like, can deceased relatives come back to talk to us? I don't know. Maybe. I don't dismiss it. I don't have proof they can't. But if you bring me a dream like this one and say, was that the spirit of my mother specifically coming back to me from the beyond? I can't tell the difference. So all I can say is at that moment, your mind brought these things together to you, to show it to you as a destination from the journey in the river, it's the attitude the girl brought to the forest that led her to the river that took you to this place in your past with your family to bring them back. And it wasn't really that they said anything. They didn't seem to give you advice. What they gave you was a feeling of being reconnected with them. And that's what I wanted to focus on. So all of that to say, I wanted to focus on that a little bit. For what was there a strong impression of, go ahead.
It felt like they wanted me to know that they're still with me, which was nice. That was comforting.
That's where I was going. So they're counterfactual again. If you had a bad relationship with your parents or grandparents, if they were awful people, if they took advantage of you or abused you in some way, you probably wouldn't get a happy feeling from seeing them again. So you're revisiting in your mind. And this, I think those are powerful. I'm all over the place. I don't finish a sentence sometimes, most of the time. But they wanted me to know that they are still with me, and that there's a dual meaning is the wrong word there. But you wanted you to know that who they are and what they represent to you is still with you. So this is almost always dreams are us. We're talking to ourselves. And that's important too, because well, it's all important. What am I trying to say? The people who are important to us in our lives that leave an impression on us and have a positive impact, that never goes away. Also, it never goes away if they leave a negative impact. We try to forget it or push it aside or reinterpret it, transform trauma to triumph in that sense. But when people are good to us and they have a positive impact on our life, very often we'll think of them, or we'll unconsciously use things they taught us to move ourselves forward in life. Well, here you're showing, this, just to kind of say it again, is this you've pregnant with an idea, bolt of lightning, given birth maybe to this joyful exploration of a natural space, and it leads you to the transportation of a river, another natural force of nature, and that brings you to think about your family and the impact they had on you, and how you miss them, certainly, and how you can just sit in quiet with them and know that they love you. They don't have to say or do anything. And one of the things the strongest impressions of your grandfather appears to be the harmonica. He's just playing his harmonica, and you're like, this is nice. This is so you brought yourself to a very positive, happy place where you're experiencing the I think you said comforting. Did you say?
It was interesting. I mean, I didn't touch them. It's not like I hugged them. I didn't really, I was just kind of there with them. And then I, was like lying down on the porch with my hand still in the water, even though they were all just kind of sitting there, and so it's like, it was comforting, but it's like I wasn't fully there because I had my hand in the water, and like still looking.
Yeah.
And so
maybe a representation that the journey of because you got back into the water to have it carry you somewhere else. You, in a sense, you're like, well, I haven't really. What is it like when we take a pit stop? There's a way station, and the journey isn't done. We're just having a moment's rest and peace and quiet, and maybe a little bit of a comfort, and that could be physical comfort or emotional comfort. You said something earlier that I may have written it down wrong, or I may be remembering it wrong. You were there with your grandfather playing the harmonica, your grandmother just chilling with you, your hands still kind of in the water. The journey's not done. It's just a pit stop. But it was when your mother came out to join you on the porch, and she also said nothing, but it was after she arrived that you realized you needed to keep going. I don't know if you say a little bit about that, like what that feeling was like at the moment, like. You didn't stay longer because she arrived,
Yeah. Again, no dialogue, no hugging, no touching. It's just like everyone had their own little space. It was still raining. The rain was still happening. I remember, aside of that, as a little girl, a lot of times when it would rain, we'd all sit on the porch and just watch the rain, because a lot of times the lightning would blow out the electricity. So, but it was, so we're all on the porch, just kind of all in our own little space. Yeah, then I decided it was time to go, and I just jumped back into the water. Like, no goodbyes or anything like that. I just knew that they were there.
Yeah. Could very well be that, you knew they weren't really there, so goodbyes were pointless in a sense. But also, I think more importantly, there was no words of greeting either. There was no words of wisdom. There was no communication of any kind. It was just together having a shared space. And it's great that that's actually drawn almost directly from a real life experience that you had of like, we would do this. We would just sit on the porch, and they were, the way you spoke of it, it seems you have positive associations with that this is generally, it was just a nice thing. So, okay, we'll continue. We'll maybe come back to this here, because it may be some dots to connect. Okay, we're fully onto the second page now. Here we go. I guess I did want to just ask again briefly that, the way you described it, my mom came out to join us on the porch, and that's when I realized I have to go. So there's a connecting of the dots there. There's something the mother's arrival reminded you of. Did she, let's see, your relationship with her, was she always kind of pushing you to achieve? Maybe that's the wrong way to, or encouraging, is she?
No. None of that.
None of that?
None of that.
Interesting. I'm just trying to put the pieces together. Like, why was the impetus, the trigger to knowing you needed to continue your journey? Why did that come after she arrived? What was you trying to show yourself there?
I don't know. I know my mother was bipolar growing up, so she was gone a lot. So just,
Okay.
especially it was during a time that people really did not understand mental illness.
Yeah.
No, they still don't, but we at least try more nowadays.
Fair enough. Yeah, we have a better understanding. It is still a drop in the bucket. Let me tell you for sure.
Right.
Fair enough. We may not get an answer on that too. If I poke around it too much, it might be a waste of time. But that might be something to continue there too. Is it could be. I'm trying to think of prompts to give you in terms of like, well, if I suggest this, what if we look at it from that side? It was. There may be, what am I trying to say? There may be something going on there of like, sometimes we bring people as an example to put on a pedestal, and some people as an object lesson, a warning. Don't. So it may be your mother, so definitely for some reason, her sudden addition to the porch made you understand or realize or feel the urge to continue the journey. So there's something she represents in there that is also part of a driving force for you, a reason to move forward. And part of it may be that, she was never able to accomplish as much as she would have liked because she was held back. And when you look at her life, you realize, well, I can do more, and not because you're pooping on her, but because, by comparison, you just have greater capability. You're able to continue the journey in a way that she couldn't. She's kind of stuck on the porch in a way, but you can get back in the water and keep going. Did she have to come back to her parents' house often because she? Yeah, that's kind of, well, that's very common with bipolar. Your life's just not stable, like folks with schizophrenia too. So that might be part of it. Is like you're not stuck here on this porch. It was a happy place for you. It was a brief respite. It was nice to remember, but your journey is taking you somewhere else. I think that's where we're going with that. It makes sense to me. I don't know if you feel it. I'm not telling you how to feel, but that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Good deal. So you jump back into the stream. And I don't know if these are like, that's how you entered the stream too, is you jumped in. It wasn't a hesitant dipping of the toe. There's something probably about how you approach certain projects, maybe a life in general. Yeah. You jump in with both feet. Sometimes,
hopefully there's water in the pool.
sometimes you want to look first.
Sometimes.
That's not, well, and that's a good thing too. That's why we talk these things through and we ask these kind of questions, because if I make an assumption that based on your personality, I would have said, if I had to guess, if I had to flip a coin, I'd say you're probably jumping with both feet kind of person. But if you weren't, that would say something different. So we compare the dream to how you are in real life, and the dream might be saying, you should probably jump into the river more often. You're going to get further. There's a part of you that says, I know I need to work up to that and get that going. But in this case, it's just validating, saying, and the fact that it's happened twice now, you jumped in to get where you were going and you're jumping back in to continue the journey. There's something in there that, what is it? Your sleeping brain is saying this is a consistent part of your personality and it works for you. It could have been a warning, like, oh no, I jumped in with both feet and I got sucked down a whirlpool into a cave. Then you're like, this isn't working. I need to do something else. But it helps you continue your journey. It's a small point, but and then it says, I wrote down become a woman. I don't know what that means. You were no longer a girl.
Right. So as I was swimming, like I kind of grew up as I was swimming. So from a little girl to like a woman. So not little skin and bones anymore, but I don't know. Yeah,
absolutely. What age would you put yourself as a woman?
Oh.
I mean,
I'd probably say from about a 10-year-old to about a 35-year-old, 30s. Not an old woman.
Well, sure. No, that's the question too. Were you a young woman, fully a woman now, no longer a child or a teenager anymore, or were you an old woman that would have meant, but instead you were kind of in the middle age, so to speak. You were old enough to have gained, what is it we get at 35? We've got a decent amount of experience and practice and study, and we've seen enough to really, I mean, that's what is it, to be the president of the United States, you got to be at least 35. So there's something about that age roughly where someone is considered finally barely able to kind of show some wisdom in life and probably got your shit together. And it's when you might think of, I've arrived, I'm stable in my job, perhaps I can start a family, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, choosing that age. So you're fully a woman and a competent woman by the age. How did you? And then I wrote walking park, feet sink in earth. I'm writing my own, right? So how did you get out of the water? Just walk up on the shore?
Like the water kind of came to a park, where I kind of just climbed out, and then I was just started walking. But then as I would walk, my feet would sink into the earth, and not just like a little bit, but like to my knees. And there was like all this greenery and this mountain that just kind of went on, and I was by myself. There were no other people around. Yeah, and then I had to have to take my leg out, and the next step I take my foot to my knees again. It was really hard.
And that's interesting too. So this is another typical dreams of deceased relatives. Another typical dream is it's typically called the boogeyman dream or something, or the bogey dream, where something's chasing me. I'm terrified of it catching me. My feet are stuck in molasses. I'm moving slowly. My body has no energy to push me to run away from this danger. But that's not what's going on with you. But you have at least the experience. So that's not the feeling you were having, just to be clear, right?
I wasn't scared.
Not scared.
And no one was chasing me. In fact, no one was around. I knew I had to get over the hill. My feet just kept sinking into the earth. I was able to get my foot out and take another step, but it would sink again. So
that is interesting. Okay, so you've got multiple things combined here, as always, but great detail. So the water leads you to a park, and you describe it as a park, even though all you're describing is just an open space with grass. And that's what a lot of parks are.
Like manicured grass. Like how parks have manicured, the grass mode, like that. But it's like a big hilly type space. Yeah, exactly. It's not raining. Yeah, it stopped raining.
And then it stopped raining also. And you didn't get the sense that the ground was soggy from the rain, and that's why you were sinking. There was no connection there?
No. Yeah, it was, kind of muddy. Well, not like my kids, imagine just green grass. You take a step in it and your foot just sinks all the way in, and then you take it out. So you're looking at these big holes as you walk.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Well, the reason I'm highlighting that is that it might have been a stronger connection or more direct thought or observation in the dream. What am I trying to say? Those two things can be connected, and maybe they are, but you would think, what's the counterfactual? If you'd had the experience that you thought to yourself, and I remember distinctly thinking, geez, this grass is hard to walk through because it's muddy from the rain. But that's not actually the connection you had. So I think it's more important that the rain stopped, that you are no longer in the rainy forest. Now you're in a park, which is more associated with civilization. People make parks. The rainforest grows wild, and people make houses too. But the idea that you're stepping out of a natural environment into in a sense, artificial man-made environment, and there's an element of the boogeyman dream in there of the difficulty of movement and a goal that is being frustrated by the difficulty of movement. I got to get to the hill, but my feet keep sinking. What the expression we use is tough slog, to move through a swamp or whatever, that kind of environment. So there's something going on there with the effort to put in to achieve a goal and the frustrating difficulty of the steps, literally steps involved. But our brain loves puns. Dreams love puns.
Right. Yeah. And so because in the river, it was so free and just so fluid. nonstop, then to like intentionally get out. It's like, okay, I'm here, let's go. And then it just being so slow moving.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing too. It's going with the flow. What was I say? It's damn, I had an expression and I was writing down something else and then I lost the other half of it. But there's you can let the river take you where the river goes, but then that's not your choice. And what we do is sometimes we get out of the easy flow of things because we have a goal. We have a destination we want to get to. And here you're showing yourself having difficulty making the steps necessary to get there. But you did eventually arrive, and there was a house at the top of the hill.
There was a house. It was starting to get dark. I was tired. And I wanted to get some rest, but the house was like all beat up, like falling apart. So kind of like a house you see in a horror film.
Yeah. That was one thing I was going to ask you, actually. When did this dream come to you? What's the time frame?
It actually came a couple weeks ago. I'd probably say mid-February.
Okay.
It just really kind of stuck with me because it was so vivid.
Yeah.
It's like so vivid. There were just so many steps to it too.
Oh yeah.
And that. Good.
Sorry, it's writing my own notes there too. My theory, and sometimes I think, I'm reinventing the wheel. I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever think of these things, but in my estimation, dreams self-select for importance. If you remember them, if the feeling was intense, if the imagery is vivid, that means something to you. Now, not all important dreams make it out into consciousness, but the ones that do, the ones you remember, the ones you think about 2 weeks later, those tend to be saying something that you really feel like you need to understand or want to understand or that it would be beneficial to understand. If it was pointless, you probably just would have forgot it a long time ago. Wake up, it'd be gone in 3 seconds. As most dreams are, I think. Most of them are just kind of stream of consciousness, nothing really important. But use a lot of wonderfully descriptive words. I mean, the rain has ended. So there's a very interesting, the rain has ended. And it was
getting dark.
And it was getting dark. You're tired, exhausted, wet, cold, and there's a shelter ahead. There's a human-built habitation, but it's not appealing.
Right.
There's
no other option.
Yeah, you're taking beggars and choosers, exactly. But it very well could have been, hey, I got lucky and it's beautiful here. But what you got was something that was left behind by someone else. It's run down. It has not been under continuous occupation to keep it maintained. It's got the hallmarks of a haunted house from a horror movie. The dust and maybe the sheets over chairs or stuff like that or whatever. And what you find in there is the rest you're going to be afforded in a less than ideal place is nothing but a kind of a dirty old cot. So. And then that actually brought you to kind of the end of the dreams. You're tired and it has this musty smell, and you lay down to go to sleep, to rest, and you wake up. So there's something about the destination being presented to you in this way. It almost makes me think of has there been what am I trying to say? Has there been something you've been involved in recently where the end product wasn't what you hoped it would be and you were kind of disappointed by it? It was like, well, this is what I got. All my effort came out with this, and you're laughing, so I'm hoping I hit something there. And I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you want to say.
Oh yeah, in fact, yes, an astounding yes. So
can you tell me, or should we not?
No. What's that?
Can you tell me, or we better not? What it was about?
I let's just say everything's connected, but yeah, that's I guess you figure you work really hard for something, and it just kind of falls apart.
Okay. Well,
So,
good. If you understand it, you don't have to identify it. And I know you were working with other people, and so we're not going to get into that for their sake and whatnot. But this is meaningful to you, so that seems like what it, God, do
it makes
you feel
sense.
you feel like we hit a through line here from the. So I'll just kind
And
of go ahead.
it's so funny how your subconscious just kind of lets you know, with symbolism what's going on. So it's like, huh.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if I were to realize that earlier, could I do something to avoid the disappointment of something that were to happen, if it were to be disappointing?
Yeah. It might be a situation where if you have a similar dream, it's hard to tell because now you're going to, what am I trying to say? You didn't know what this dream was about until 2 weeks later and we talked about it. So how are you going to do that with the next one? People can do what I do for themselves. You can write it all out and then ask yourself questions. Well, what does this mean to me? How do I feel about that? Let me identify the people, the places, the actions, and try and dig out, what does it mean to be shoveling sand? Why would I be shoveling sand? That kind of thing. What does sand represent to me? Why a shovel? So it seems like we've definitely got you thinking your way through this thing of like, I am someone who is pregnant with all this potential in a beautiful, natural, dynamically. I think of rainforests as lush, like they are just the cradle of all kinds of life. And there may be a pregnant woman in a rainforest, very, very similar, analogous type of things, pregnant with all this potential. And then the girl, so you're looking at yourself like, I am a creative person. Where'd I get that from? Like, my life and my history with my family, it's part of who I am, and the wonderful things I experienced in the wholeness of this relationship with them. But that's only part of my journey. I was full of potential. I had a pit stop with this family that I loved and cared for, and they're all gone, and it's nice to see them again. But my journey carries me on. Now I'm doing projects which are, and again, this is what I'm thinking this through of all. A public park is a man-made structure, and you're slogging through a man-made structure, and your feet are sinking. It's hard to make progress in it, and you're struggling and fighting for a destination. You get there, and it's just all that work for this. This is my destination. This is the end. So if you had a dream similar that brings up similar themes like that, if you start seeing rainforests and water and houses in the distance on a hill, you're like, you might be going, am I in the same situation again? Am I warning myself, don't waste your effort because this isn't what it seems to be, or you're not going to get out of it what you would prefer. That's how dreams can be useful. If this was more of a recurring dream, well, it would be if this came up in your life more often. I think it probably doesn't. I think you probably have a pretty good track record of success with your invested effort into different things, as far as you're concerned, your self-assessment.
Yeah, I mean, things are good. I mean, there are always ups and downs.
It's true.
But everything is always learning. But it's just so interesting how the dream kind of is reflecting this other situation. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then like if I'd asked you at the beginning, like you told me the whole dream and I said, okay, I think I know where this is going. Let me just do a little pre-screening and then we'll go back and visit at the end. I might have asked, oh wow, no, I just lost it. No, I had this genius idea. It was like a multiple choice thing. No, I can't remember it. I don't know where these things are going until I start talking to people. And I am always, speaking of terrified, and you never know what the end result is going to be. I never know if I'm going to give someone anything useful, but I live for that moment where suddenly you went, and and then you don't have to say anything more than that. You get it. And that's what I do this for, is it suddenly makes sense to you, like, oh, that connects. And then, in some ways it's kind of sad to surrender the mystery, but the joy in solving the puzzle. I love that. So, well, did you go ahead.
It's just so interesting how your subconscious works,
It really is.
Just the messages that if we just kind of pay attention to them, because how many times do you have a dream and you just ignore it? So
I think most people do. Yeah. And it's not all going to be earth-shaking stuff. It can be
No.
like I have some interesting experiences, which I think are fun. So I say this all the time, but it's the first time I'm meeting you. So I have maybe 5 dreams in my lifetime I can remember. And that's really weird to some people that are dreamers, because they're like, I dream every night. How do you not? And it's like, well, I have 5 I can remember, and that's way down there. So typically I have no memory I dreamed of anything ever. Sometimes, rarely, I wake up knowing I was having a dream, no idea what was in it. More rarely, I can remember a few images, but they're disconnected and there's no story. And extremely rarely, 5 times in my life, I have a whole narrative I can tell people. So that's part of my fascination with dreams too. So, but what happens to me very often is I'll go to bed confused or uncertain about something, and I will wake up in the morning knowing exactly how I feel and exactly what I want to do about it. And I have no memory of ever having a dream, but my brain was processing the entire night through trying to solve this thing. So if I did remember a dream, it would probably give me that same answer, but I'm okay with getting the answer, even if I don't remember the dream.
It's the main thing, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I think most people can do that. If you let yourself, and I tell people, sleep on it. And I don't just mean metaphorically give it time. I mean that literally, but literally sleep on it also. Give your chance of brain to shut down and process those things. So, well, the last thing I was going to do is ask you if you had further questions, if you wanted to zero in on any specific things, like we just weren't able to figure it out before. If you have more questions, we keep going. If not,
This dream makes so much more sense to me now. Just break it down like that. It's I see how it correlates to what I have gone through not too long ago too. So it's interesting. It happened about the same time as I was going through that. So
yeah, no, that's amazing. They're almost always directly connected to our waking experience, and it's not always something we've been through, but it can be something we've been pondering lately. Like we have a existential crisis. We have to make a decision about something. We have to decide how we feel and then take an action. We'll have dreams about that kind of stuff too. So yeah, well,
cool.
if you're
that.
Satisfied, and
I am. It was fun. So thank you.
Well, good.
Thank you. It's like kind of cool.
I appreciate that. It should be a fun experience, and it should be dreamers out there. This should be the easiest thing you've ever done. All the pressure is on me. If I ask you something and I don't know, you have not failed. The dreamer cannot do this wrong. So you don't have to worry about that. Yep.
Just really.
Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It should be an enjoyable process too. It shouldn't be, pulling teeth or surgery without anesthetic. It's just terrible. But well, let's do this. We'll wrap it up, and I will say this has been our guest dreamer, Sophia Luisa. She's an actress, writer, and producer. She's got a brand new movie coming out very soon, a horror film called Paralysis. Of course, you can find out more about her at imdb.me/Sophia Luisa Lee. That link will be in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Always need more volunteer dreamers and viewers for my video game streams Monday through Friday. Most days. I'm taking this Friday off, of course, which by this time it'll be last Friday. Never mind. Forget I said that. That's on Rumble and YouTube. This episode also brought to you in part by ABC Book 2, The Mystery of Dreams, offering an explicitly Christian perspective on dream interpretation. It is a sermon written by a preacher in England in the 1530s, 1538, I think. Fascinating work that I had to adapt, and all of these historical works are very highly edited, footnoted, lots of Latin translation in this one. Very proud of that. That's too much talking for me. All this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, building a community there, free to join, attached to my Rumble account. That is enough out of me. Sophia, thank you for being here. I have enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much, Ben. I enjoyed this.
Good deal.
Good one.
And everybody out there, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.